Hey guys, it's Eric Crownover from Nerdy Geek Talk, source for all your nerdy geeky needs, and I'm here with episode 1 of Journey to Toy Design. Now, this should be a show that I think will be pretty interesting for most people. It's me explaining the process in which you have to go to become a toy designer, and also sort of my experience in that process so far, but mainly just a description and like just a look into how it goes for those of you who are curious, for those who are thinking about pursuing it if you are, but also those of you who are totally set in your career path and you're just curious about it. It's interesting. So this first episode, we're just going to talk about what you're getting yourself into, basically, just what you should be aware of before you even start the process. And so I'll talk about schools and stuff like that that are specifically meant for toy design, things like that next episode. But on this episode, I'm just going to talk about what kind of things you need to think about before you decide, yeah, I'm going to go for it. So, first off is it's a lot of drawing. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to be good at drawing already. You don't have to already draw a ton, but you have to be aware of the fact that once you begin, you are going to be drawing a lot. So they will teach you how to draw, but it is an important part. You'll draw less the further along you get, but the drawing is very important in terms of portfolios and stuff, which we'll talk a bit more about once you're actually in school for this next episode. But just be aware, it's a lot of drawing. So if you don't draw a lot before, like I didn't draw a lot before, that is fine. You can go into it and learn how to draw, but the thing is, you just have to be prepared for the big change that you're going to spend hours and hours drawing. Um, and the next bit of thing is that it sort of goes hand in hand with that is that you're going into basically the arts. You're going into art school almost because no matter where you're going, you're considered liberal arts. Um, that's just what design is. Now, there is engineering that goes into Transformers, but if you're going to be a toy designer, which is still what you do for Transformers, you will be getting a design degree. Now, some places it's industrial design, some places specifically toy design. Again, that'll be school specific. But the important thing is that you're going into the arts. So if you're a science math kind of person, which I certainly was beforehand, you just need to be aware of the fact that it's a total switch. You're going to be spending a lot more time on projects that there's no right answer to. It's all in terms of art, it's all design stuff. I'm in several design classes, and there's certain rules of design, which there's rules, and you're supposed to go by and to get better responses to things because there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer, but still you can get better responses from your works. I've gotten good responses from breaking the rules, so it's it's crazy. It's just be aware of the fact that you're going into arts if you're going into design. And so it's not you do this, this, and this, and you get this. It's a crazy thing. As, everyone has creativity, but it's how good are you at expressing it, and that's what they're going to try to teach you to express it. The thing is, you just have to be prepared for the fact you're going to work, how do I put it? The teachers said at the beginning of the semester, you're going to work a lot harder, a lot longer, and get less money than pretty much everyone else here, but at least you get to have a lot more fun than all of them during your job. And so I found that to be true, is that I've worked certainly longer and harder on all my stuff than anyone else I've known, except with those who are in my design class that I work with, but um, the truth is, I think it's worth it. Not everyone does, though. It's not everyone's thing. It's certainly a shock to go from, like, I was always in math and science stuff to into this. I was not in any arts besides music. I was certainly into music, but I had many, many music classes. But in terms of, like, drawing, that kind of art, none. None since middle school. And now that's all I do. So it certainly is a switch. Just be prepared for that switch. Can you do that? Just because you aren't an arts person already does not mean you cannot do it. That is not what I mean at all. In fact, some of the best people switch from that, and that's the thing, is that you can't just say because you don't do it already that you can't do it. That's two totally different things. just be aware of the fact you're going to go through that change. Um, Now, other things that aren't necessarily with have to do with school, it's the fact that you're going to be designing toys. Now, assuming that you're listening to this, the chances are most of you are toy collectors. Most of you are probably Transformers toy collectors. But no matter what, if you're going to design toys for a franchise that you like, per se, if it's for a franchise that you don't follow or collect, then this doesn't apply as much. But I'm specifically going into I want to be a Transformers toy designer, and that's what I'm kind of, aiming this towards, but it's still just a journey to toy design in general. Um, so things that you're going to have to accept, and these are the harder ones, at least I think so. First off is no more surprises. So those events throughout the years that there's all the toy reveals and everything. It's so exciting, and even the leaks. It's still exciting when you see it, and it's a surprise. You don't get surprises anymore. You know it. You're making it, and while that is a really cool thing, but you don't get that surprise at all ever until you're done, like working for them. Then you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, unless you maintain contact with the former coworkers, but still, you don't know. I mean, you will always know what's coming. So it's kind of cool because you always know, but at the same time, you never get surprised. So it's a trade. Next off, no more fandom. Now, not literally, but if you were active in the fandom, you talk to lots of other members of the fandom online and stuff. If you podcast, if you listen to podcasts, you talk to people members of Transformers podcasts. You don't get to do that anymore. Now, not saying you don't get to talk to people individually anymore, but you don't get to post in Transformers fans groups and stuff. You don't get to speculate. You don't get to talk to those people. You're not really allowed to maintain. Especially if you're on a podcast, you're not going to be allowed to do that anymore because you're part of Hasbro's representation. You can't be part of something else that isn't affiliated with Hasbro. Now, does that mean you have to cut off all communications with everyone? No, you're still allowed to talk to people privately. You can't share private information about Transformers, but still, in terms of being involved with the online fandom, you can still, the designers interact with the fandom at the conventions and stuff, but you still can't go online and start talking about the toys with everyone. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So that's another thing to think about, is that how important is that to you to be talking to everyone about the Transformers fandom online, because you're not going to be doing that anymore. Another thing, well, that's okay. So that's basically it for the negatives. So the negatives are, if you're involved in a fandom, and again, this applies to anything. Like if you're a Marvel fan and you want to design Marvel Legends, you're going to know what those toys are from now on, and you're not going to be allowed to talk to people who are speculating about those toys and like giving them information, stuff like that. Not unless it's like at a convention and you're on a panel, things like that. You can't engage with the fandom on your own. You only are representing the company from now on in terms of that franchise. So, with those things said that are somewhat negative, and I gave the art thing and the drawing thing at the beginning, those aren't really positive or negative. It totally just depends on the person. If you hate drawing, be aware that you're going to be doing that if you want to do this. This might not be the thing for you. Now, there's a difference between hating drawing and you haven't drawn before. Two very different things. But either way, you're going to be doing a lot of that. You're going to be in the art school, which is very different from most other schools. Now, so those are kind of neutral. It's not good or bad. It's just things you should be aware of. Now, the bad things are no more fandom and no more surprises. But there's good things. For example, you get to make them. That's so cool. There's no denying that it is really, really cool that you are making the very things that you loved. I mean, assuming you're making a toy line you collected, but no matter what, you're making things that are going into stores worldwide that, anyone can just walk into a store near them and buy something that you designed. That's pretty darn neat. I think that outweighs everything right there. But two, you get to decide what you're making. Now, there's influence because obviously you have to have your Optimus Prime, your Bumblebees, your Megatrons, but in stuff with Generations, they've been doing lots of obscure characters, and now the lower designers don't necessarily get to all pick those. It's still the design team does have an influence on who gets picked. So not saying that the second that you're hired by Hasbro, if you are, you get to decide every single toy that you make. No, that's not the case. But will you have an influence on what characters get made over several years? yeah, you get input. So that's neat, and it's somewhat of a personal thing. So it's not necessarily like you're doing good for the world, like the like the toy designing, the first thing I said. But it is neat. You get to create the characters the way you want to too. Now, again, you have restrictions for working for Hasbro, like a company. Paying an application. You have cost restrictions in terms of your designs, but still, you're designing toys of characters that you like, of a franchise you like. So that being said, you need to consider, is it worth it? Some people, their their involvement with the fandom and everything is way more important to them than getting to make the toys will ever be, and they're happy just collecting them and everything. I totally understand that. I'm almost with you. But like I said, the first pro I gave is that you are making something that will be distributed across the world to stores pretty much everywhere, that almost anyone can walk, can not, well, not always walk, but go to a store relatively close to them, walk inside and purchase a product that you made, that you designed. That's really cool, for one, because your work is literally worldwide, that anyone can go buy. Two, you're spreading joy worldwide. Now, not even just to adult collectors for those who collect toys, but there's going to be kids that play with toys. That's what toys are meant for. So you're making things that you love. I'm assuming if you're going into this, most toy designers are extremely passionate. So you love it, and you're making things that people all around the world are going to love and play with. Now, I mean, not everyone's going to love your toy. Some people are going to have problems with it, but still, it brings people joy. So that's also pretty neat. That's why I want to do it. I think it's worth it. Now, that also means that no more Radio Free Cybertron, no more podcasting, no more talking to people like crazy on Twitter once I'm part of Hasbro, if I ever get part of Hasbro. That's a whole different that's a whole big if right there. But I think that it is certainly worth it, but I totally understand those of you who would feel happy where you are. And for those of you who are not younger and older and already, solid in a career choice, I'm curious, if you could go back, would you? Would you go for toy design and do the thing that I'm going to be explaining how you get into through this whole series, or would you go and still collect throughout the fandom and engage basically the way you have? Like, would you go back and change your job if you could to this? Because not many people think of that whenever they're growing up, like, oh yeah, I want to go make toys. And, like, it's not a common choice to just think of. So, and for those of you young, if any of you are considering toy design, that is awesome, and you should definitely let me know, because as I said, I am going into toy design. I'm at school for it right now. I'm at Purdue, but as I will explain, there are many, many different options, and that'll be next week, basically, schools, like what you're going to have to do for different applications, and also the different places you should and can apply for toy design, and what the advantages to all of them are, because certainly one school is not a clear winner in terms of toy design, which is already a weird, small field to begin with. It's a small portion of a huge field, which is design in general. So that's going to be next week. But this has been episode 1 of Journey to Toy Design, and this is what you're getting into. So thank you for listening. You can check out any of our other podcasts. Our regular ones are Steel City Bots, which I am on. That goes up Tuesdays, and Holocron Herald, which is our Star Wars podcast, which goes up on Thursdays. Now, for National Podcast Month, we started other new podcasts. One is Why Eric Why, and that will be continuing because it's gotten pretty positive feedback. Also, there's TF Team Ups, which a lot of people have really liked the idea of that, so I'm curious to see where it goes. And I'm trying to think what we already started. Why So Super? I almost called it Super Saturdays. It's not what it is. It goes up on Saturdays, but Why So Super? And There's obviously this, which you can definitely come back for more. I think this is going to be a really interesting one. This one will have a definitive end, though. And then also Movie Mondays, which will be starting. That one hasn't started yet. So make sure you check all those out if any of them interest you. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching, guys. Bye.